What's up, everybody? A Sparrow with a Gun here from Sleepless with another episode on Medieval Engineers. When we left off in the last episode, we were working on finishing up the terrain, which is going pretty good. We've got it all pretty well covered up to where it looks hopefully kind of natural. I did find one interesting thing, though. After the last episode, I was trying to figure out a better way to do the terrain without all of the breaking and shading parts. Like, you can see all of the different shadows that would show up when you get closer, or if the angle of the sun changes, and it makes it difficult to see whether the terrain is the way you want it. So, I went into the graphics options, and there is a foliage detail, and if you disable that, then you get the flat ground, which obviously doesn't look that good, but you can very clearly see if there's a break or a crack, or like this, where it bends and doesn't work that well. And then you can go back in and, like, buff it out, kind of thing. Oops. Don't do that. No. Break more. Seeing like that, it leaves a little crack in the terrain there. So I think we're gonna play around with it in this stage for a minute. I think in trying to fix this one little area, I think I'm breaking stuff. Okay, seriously, stop. I'm trying to get it to just scale up a little bit, and it keeps like making a hill, and that's not really what I want it to do. I do sometimes wish that there was a way to do a smaller voxel than this, but this is probably the smallest that they have implemented. So anyways, you can kind of see how that will help us speed things along instead of making things real time consuming. So first off, actually let's work on this part, because it's actually the bigger part. So we're going to connect the mountain part here. And let's flatten this out a bit. So, as you can see, with the foliage turned off, it makes things a lot easier to tell how the terrain is actually shaped and not how it's shaded. Because the shading part can make it a little bit more difficult to read how you need to change your terrain to get it to work the way that you want it. So this way we'll be able to actually detect all the little breaks and stuff without really having to compare a whole lot of stuff and test and shape and get it wrong a bunch of times before figuring out, oh, that was just a shadow, you know, stuff like that. So I need to bring this down. Alright. Blend that in. This should hopefully be the last episode on this build, because I don't think there's much more I'm gonna do with it. Once it's covered up, it's kind of like we're done, because I just wanted to basically cover it up and seal it into a hill, basically. Okay, that didn't go well. That did not drop the way I wanted it to. Actually, neither did this. I was going to leave it there, but that's too much of a inclination there. Okay, so that kind of fixed that. One thing, though, that we can bring up, or discuss, I guess, while we're trying to fill all this in. Ooh, that worked pretty good. That was kind of an accidental success. One of the things I wanted to mention in this episode is I have noticed, and this is in no way, shape, or form a like pointing a finger or anything. This is just a factual statement. I've noticed that the Medieval Engineers Let's Build series hasn't really been... It's kind of declining in the views and stuff like that. That even actually Subnautica has actually been doing better than Medieval Engineers, which surprised me. But I mean, that's cool. I like Subnautica. It's a fun game. My question is whether or not we should basically continue this series after this build or put it on the shelf for a while. And the reason I say that is, as you all know, I've been doing some schedule series replanning and things like that. Well, not replanning. Consolidating is probably the best term. Where I'm trying to look at what's really making my views, what's not, you know, and trying not to be too biased, because I'll admit some of the ones that aren't doing as well are the things that I just wanted to do for fun, but aren't exactly getting the following that I wanted them to when I started them out. Things like Kingdom Hearts and Metal Gear and things like that were games that I wanted to play, and I wanted to record them and get feedback from people and, you know, stuff like that. Mostly for sequels, that when sequels came out, people would be able to watch on my channel and find the, you know, the backstory and all that kind of stuff. But it hasn't really, like, those two in particular have not really done that. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. So, yeah, as I was saying, those two in particular were not really doing what I wanted them to. It was more just for having them on my channel for future reference and things like that. So that's all well and good. I mean, I don't blame anybody for that. But in looking at my channel, though, as far as like trying to identify what everybody likes the most, and I even have that survey at the moment that I've been keeping track of for people's priorities and things, I know that my typical, I guess, audience space, or audience people, whatever, I know you guys all tend to lean more towards space. Because Elite Dangerous has done well, Space Engineers has done well, you know, things like that. That it became very clear that there were a lot of space-type things that were doing better than other things, like, you know, Kingdom Hearts or Metal Gear or other things that just, you know, they're either not space or just not as popular, whatever. So it doesn't exactly surprise me, I guess, that there's been a decline in the Medieval Engineers section of views. But my question is basically coming down to, is it worth it? Type of thing. At the moment, like, a lot of my series, like Medieval Engineers, we recently, you know, took a hiatus from Grav and stuff like that, but very few of my series are actually like things I would quote-unquote quit. Most of them, like Medieval Engineers or Grav or all those, if I stop them, it's usually just because they're not performing the way that I want them to at the moment, so I'm waiting for, like, a boost, you know, whether it be a game update or whatever. We did that with Starbound for a while, where we went to modded because the main one had the vanilla one had kind of run its course for a while, you know, just stuff like that. So it's like Medieval Engineers. If we were to put it on a shelf for a while, it would not be permanent. At least I don't think it would be, unless there was just no demand for it. But the fact that they're still working out, implementing a, like, survival mode kind of thing, means that once they do, we could totally go back to it and do a survival series. You know, eventually as they add more blocks or, you know, refine the game to where it's more optimized. I almost said optifined. But kind of. I mean, if it gets more optimized to where... Whoa. To where it runs smoother, you can do more with it without as many frame rate issues. And that's mostly me, as far as I know some people that don't have problems because their computers are better, whatever the reason may be. For me, I feel, and I've voiced that before, that it's more than likely a optimized issue. As far as, yes, I don't have the best rig in the world, but it should be able to run something like this without too many problems. So, you know, the kind of natural progression of things would be that that would imply that it has something to do with the game still being an alpha. It's not, you know, really efficiently optimized yet. Things like that. So, yeah, I guess what it all boils down to is pretty much a... because of the dwindling, I shouldn't really say that there is no viewing for Medieval Engineers, but it's definitely gotten less than when I first started putting videos out. That could be the build, that could just be the game, you know, there's a lot of different factors, but the one thing that I'm noticing is that there isn't as much of a demand for it, obviously, as things like Elite or Space Engineers. So, what I'm really focused on doing with my channel over the next few months is to really iron out how to kind of do a few games here and there that are just fun and things I want to do, and they're also things people like to watch, but also focus most of the majority of my content on, you know, what is actually drawing in the most amount of viewership, which at the moment is probably, it would fall somewhere in the Space Engineers, Elite Dangerous, and Subnautica categories, to be honest. Those seem to be my three strongest series, I almost said franchises, series at the moment. So that worked pretty well. Oop, what is that? See, like that, it's very easy to catch a break. I caught a break. But it's very easy to spot breaks when you don't have the grass on. Not to mention, it does make everything run a bit smoother while you're generating terrain and things like that. So if you are running on a lower frame rate or something, it can improve that, at least temporarily, until you turn it back on, in order to, you know, let you figure out what it is that you need to do. Okay, let's do like that. I'm gonna make some more splinters, I think. And then we'll use those to fill in the gap. See if... I haven't actually tested this kind of a strategy on terrain building yet, so let's see if that'll work. Actually, arguably, that worked really well, because now it's just filling things. It's not even... So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. I would appreciate it, especially if this is, in fact, the last video for this build, which I think it is. It may be a little bit longer if it needs to be, but I mean, we only have this one little half a hill here to fill in. And then we should be done. So I'm not really thinking there'd be a reason for more videos on this one. So let me know in the comments and things at the end of the video what you guys think about that, as far as would you be okay with shelving the Let's Build Medieval for a while in order to focus on something else, or if you're still interested. I know part of it for me is performance restrictions in terms of, like, I've had a few suggestions from people about, like, oh, you could build this and you could build this, and I was like, I like the idea, it would be a cool build. I don't know if I could actually build it with some of the frame rate issues that I've already had with smaller builds and less complex. So there's that has kind of reared its ugly head as far as creativity-wise. Yeah, there's some really cool things that can be done. There's some really cool things that have been done. I've seen some other builds that either people have done for YouTube or for the workshop, and some of them are just nuts. I mean, like, awesome. That's part of why, that's part of what kind of prompted the Space Engineers Inspiration series, was just like, some of these things, I don't know how people build them, but they're kind of cool, so this is kind of a two birds, one stone. Unfortunately, Medieval is still kind of in its early stages in terms of, like, while the builds that have been done are cool, there's not a ton of block variety like Space Engineers is now. Especially with Space Engineers doing mods. Well, I guess Medieval has mods too. But it just has a bigger library of blocks. And so you can get some really interesting designs that you're like, oh, never would have thought of that before. Whereas the Medieval one, they all tend to kind of blend together after a while because there isn't a whole lot of... there isn't a big block library yet. That, and because of the early optimization stage thing, you know, even if I thought about doing a Medieval inspiration or something, I feel like I'd run into the same issue of just that the bigger builds just don't run very smooth for me, which makes them hard to showcase. I try and do sometimes on Space Engineers just for awareness, like, hey, this is really bad frame rate, but you can go check it out yourself, kind of thing. But I have a feeling that most of the Medieval ones would be like that for me right now. So that's just something to think about, something to comment on in the comments. If you feel like leaving feedback on that topic, I would appreciate it. Let's see, how does that look? Overall, like, you get some of the level of detail that pulls back when you leave like this, where it looks more deformed, which I don't really know why it does that. Oh, actually, that's see-through. Ah, that's funny. That's random. But I'm not seeing any real breaks or anything. This is a little choppy here, but I don't know if I can smooth this out or not. Without making it like a huge hill. I guess even that looks a little bit better. Just filling in some of these like drastic spots. We'll try and taper this down a little, I guess. I don't want to go any higher because that would obstruct the view of the window. But at least that looks a little bit better. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. So, like, at a glance, you don't... Well, you do, but you know what I mean. You don't really see something. Alright, so let's... Moment of truth. Let's check it with... I'm using low grass just because it doesn't really look that bad, but it also doesn't impact the frames too much. I might turn it on the high just for a minute. Let's check this hill. This is our newest edition, so I highly recommend, if you're going to do ground terrain generation, doing that method, though, of turning the grass off so that you can make sure that the ground is how you... Because, I mean, this looks good now. This looks good. I like it. You wouldn't really, other than the level of detail and the render distance, you know, letting you see through it, you wouldn't really be able to tell that this wasn't part of the map. So I'm pretty happy with that. And while I know there was some grass in the ceiling and that wasn't really the intent, I don't really know if there's a way to fix that, to be honest. Oh, one thing that I did want to see, I'm trying not to bump into anything because I think most of this stuff is dynamically placed. I wanted to see how this window turned out. Oh gosh, where's my hand torch? Because I need some light to see where I'm going here. Okay, so part of the bad news is that this is like right in front. That doesn't really look that good, does it? Well, okay, I guess if you were standing up against the window, you could actually see more, like, up out through the top of the window, but I can't because I'm standing back at the edge of the bed, because I can't really get any closer. That's one of those design things that I screwed up, is putting a piece of furniture right in front of the window, but oh well. I don't really feel like going through the whole process of reorganizing that room to make that one difference, so... But yeah, I think we're going to call it quits on this build, so let me know what you guys think. In the meantime, I hope y'all enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace!